very good evening to you and a warm welcome to our program Spotlight. And on Spotlight, every week we focus on a current affairs related topic and a topic which is of public concern. So today we will be touching on something really important, and it's about the reviewing of possible illegal money channels as remittance drops, which is quite a concern for everybody out there, and they've been talking about it. It's kind of viral on social media as well, so that's the main reason as to why we picked this topic on Spotlight today. And we do have a guest who is the most suitable person to give us the details as to what the high authorities has done and the measures taken as well. So we have with us the Governor of the Central Bank, Honorable Ajit Niwad Cabral. A very good evening to you.
Good evening to you too.
And we're honored to have you here with us this evening.
Happy to be here.
And Honorable Governor, so as I mentioned at the very beginning that we will be touching on the reviewing of possible illegal money channels as remittance drops, and this is making headlines all over, not only in Sri Lanka. So let's talk about what is considered as illegal money in a layman's point of view so that people out there would get the point.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're also focusing on this subject because, as you know, remittances from abroad is a very large part of Sri Lanka's inflows into the country. And we have seen in the last few months there has been a gradual downturn in the amounts reaching the official channels of the country. And therefore, we have done an assessment of that, and we find particularly last month it was down by about $300 million. So we think that the reduction is not just attributable to normal circumstances where people haven't gone abroad and things like that, because there has been some drop pertaining to that as well. But the bulk of this $300 million in our view would be because there has been a parallel remittance flow which has been funded by sources outside the normal scope of the remittances itself. So you can see the way it happens is that there are remittances that people want to send to Sri Lanka from the Middle East or from anywhere else. But
the salary they earn, basically.
But they have earned, and they give it over to certain groups of people who collect all these foreign currency, and there is a parallel distribution of rupees in Sri Lanka to their loved ones or their nominees. So what happens is, without the money actually flowing into the country, there is another method by which monies are being channeled to all these accounts. So what they are in effect doing is that they are illegally transmitting the funds to outside countries and making use of some massive inflow or some business structure that is here to settle all these people. So they are actually remitting the money out in a actual sense. So we had to get to the bottom of it, and we think it's about $300 million last month, which if you take by the rate at which they have done, which is about 240 rupees, because there is obviously some huge profit element involved in that. In order to,
it's kind of a business as well.
It is a business. So it's a business of money laundering. So they are laundering the money by having legitimate money out there, and the illegal money that has been earned or created within Sri Lanka is being distributed to people. So that we want to crack down, because by using that, it's a scale of about 72 billion last month. So obviously there is some racket which involves some very high profit yielding industry. And what could it be? Very many people believe it's the drug business. So the spoils of the drug business are being now converted into hard cash in international currency, and that's something that we need to crack down. It's also creating a huge imbalance in our economy, and that's why we want to make sure that we crack down on this situation. But at the same time, we have to now open out proper channels for people to send their money legitimately.
Right.
So we are taking a lot of steps, and during the course of this chat today, I'll probably be able to tell you those areas as well.
That should be great as well. And also we've been talking about incomes and also about the expenditure as well. We need to touch on that too. There are people who make transactions abroad. So will this have an effect on it as well?
Absolutely not.
Right.
Anything which is above board, which is legitimate, which is lawful, will not be affected one bit. They can transact their business without any difficulty, without any problem. It is only those who are using these illegal means in order to convert the earnings of those people abroad, Sri Lankans abroad, who want to send their money over here and make use of the system to achieve their own ends. They need to be worried, because we will be examining these accounts carefully to see whether the monies have actually come from abroad, and if they haven't and it has been distributed, we call them distributors, if it has been distributed by certain organizations or by persons, we will get to the bottom of it. And not only are the persons who are distributing it at fault, but even the persons who are receiving it can also be questioned, and sometimes great inconvenience can be caused to them. That's why we are telling the people abroad, when they are sending money to their loved ones, not to make use of these illegal channels, because you may be knowingly or unknowingly putting your loved ones under pressure subsequently. And that can visit you at any time, because there are traces left in this whole system. So therefore, we don't want them to be put into trouble, and we are telling them, don't use these systems, use the proper systems, and if you do that, there won't be any problem at all.
Come through a proper bank.
Come through a proper bank, or there are money exchanges which
Yes.
are legitimately done all over the world. You can send through those. So there are plenty of ways in which can be done. Now we are also developing an app called Lanka Remit,
Right.
which will be announced very shortly. But even so, there are many other apps that are in place today which can be used for people to remit their funds into our country. So they can use those very legitimately. And also this month, in the month of December, the government and the central bank together would pay an additional 10 rupees in order to make it even more attractive for every dollar. Additional 10 rupees for every dollar, so that you make it attractive, and that would be offer that I think people should make use of, because not only will they be able to get that additional money, but they will be entitled to a pension scheme, they will be entitled to insurance schemes, loans for their dependents here in Sri Lanka. So all these benefits will be given by the government as well as by the banks itself. So that's why we are telling people, send your money from the legitimate channels, and if you do, you will enjoy all those benefits, and at the same time you will not risk your loved ones who are here. So that's the message that I would like to very clearly provide to all those who are remitting monies to their people here in Sri Lanka during the month of December.
And yes, since we are on the topic of remitting money from abroad, and you did bring up a very interesting topic which really caught my attention, about how there are facilities or there are plans to provide all these advantages for people who are working abroad, like insurance schemes and pensions. Can we get to know more about this?
Of course. I think we haven't provided sufficient attention or given sufficient attention to those who are working abroad and sending their money back to Sri Lanka, because they are the ones who earn the highest and by far the highest amount of foreign exchange for this country. In lots of times you would see that in the case of exports, there are corresponding imports which reduce the total value of the exports when you take a net basis. But in the case of these remittances, these are the earnings of people abroad which they are remitting into Sri Lanka. There's hardly any expenditure that can be deductible from this revenues that we are generating, the money that are coming into the country. So it's almost completely gross remittances, which is a very good part of the total inflows into the country. So we need to recognize that, and if you are recognizing that, we need to provide them with additional facilities, additional incentives, and that's what this government is going to do. And from the central bank's point of view also, we are recognizing that, and we in fact we set up a department called Foreign Remittances Facilitation Department recently, so that we will make it easier for people to get passports, together with of course the other government agencies, to open bank accounts before they go, and when they go to encourage them to remit the monies, so that they will also have a good life when they come back. Lots of times people, they work hard and they bring the money, and sometimes they don't really manage it well enough, and that could be a big problem for them. So we want to make sure that that also doesn't happen, that we give them proper advice, that we help them along, so that we can truly make their sacrifice that they have done for the country to be of benefit to them. So that's the overall idea that we are having, and we are implementing that very quickly. We are also going to take action against those who will not send the money through the legitimate channels,
right,
because those are actually illegal, and those are probably putting a huge amount of social tension into our country, because if it is drug related activities, you know, are completely hostile to the society, and we are going to take serious action. Those who distribute such monies as well as those who receive such monies will be prosecuted under the laws of the anti-money laundering law, and we are very serious about it, that those who indulge in these practices which are illegal, they need to watch out, because that would not be in the interest of society or themselves, and that's why we want to give them a early warning so that they don't indulge in it anymore.
And do they have to register if somebody is interested in working abroad, or if they are migrating, or maybe if they have found a job for years? Is there a procedure? Do they have to register?
Yes, I think the Labour Ministry as well as the Foreign Employment Bureau have given some very clear guidelines as to what they should do in their own interest, so that they will be enjoying the life insurance as well as certain other benefits that they would enjoy during the time that they are working abroad. So all those will be necessarily provided to them and given to them, provided they inform that they are in fact actually working abroad and that they will be seeking those advantages. So I think there is an elaborate scheme there. I know all of them are working very hard to ensure that all these people who are going abroad are looked after. There may be a few areas that we need to sharpen, and those need to be done, and we are also providing that support to those agencies to do that. And I believe that very soon we'll be able to have a structure which will encourage people when they go abroad to work for the specific time that they're working diligently, and also to make a proper living thereafter.
And Honourable Governor, we spoke about reviewing of possible illegal money channels, and how is this procedure done?
We have what is known as suspicious transaction reports that are generated by banks. When they find that there are unusual transactions, or they find that there are fairly big cash related transactions, or when they see a large number of cash transfers which are not backed by a natural underlying transaction, those would naturally provide certain suspicious feelings. As well as there are other instances of some classic giveaways. I may not mention all those now, but when you have that kind of transaction, there are a few other parameters that will also expose those transactions. So in such instances, the banks will be notifying the Financial Intelligence Unit, and we have a big team working there. We have the police authorities also supporting those activities, and I think it's necessary for all commercial societies to ensure that the integrity of their financial structures are protected. So we would be having those in place, so that if anyone is indulging in money laundering activities which can be very detrimental, we would take necessary steps to deal with it, and we have the power to prosecute, freeze accounts, but we would use that judiciously. But that's why we are saying to people, if they don't indulge in this, they don't have to worry at all about it, but if they are indulging in it, they definitely have to worry about it.
And how will this raise foreign funding in comparison to what's happening right now?
Yes, now we have identified that the total sum that may have been not credited to Sri Lanka's external account as a result of this kind of money laundering exercises could have been in the region of about $300 million for a month. Some months it may have been less. But if we look at a number of that nature, we would find that that is money that should have legitimately come into the country, but which did not come. So therefore, if we take all the steps necessary to encourage that money to come into the country, then a lot of our foreign exchange problems as well as a lot of issues could be resolved very, very quickly.
So there are things happening off the record which should be on the record.
Absolutely. So if we can have those monies coming in legitimately, the country will enjoy that as a receipt. And if that is a receipt that we have, naturally the total way in which we can deal with the current situation could be a lot better than what we have. So that's the reason that prompted us to move into this kind of a strategy. And we sincerely believe that if we implement it well, and we do intend to implement it very thoroughly, you would find that some of the key challenges that we are facing could also be overcome, and Sri Lanka will be in a position to deal with this current challenge a lot more effectively as time goes on.
And how long will this take?
It should start immediately.
Right.
And we have put in place the system. We have strengthened the oversight. We have worked with the banks to ensure that the remittance channels are improved. We have already given a 10 rupees attractive incentive for those who are sending the money during the month of December. We have sharpened the collecting points all over the world. I have had personal discussions with the banks in that regard. So I think the effect of this could be quite quick. It's not going to be something that is dragged on for a long period of time, and we will be following it up very closely. That is one of the reasons why we set up this foreign remittances facilitation department, which is a fully fledged department under a director of the central bank, and that would also be monitoring, that would be encouraging, that would be advising, that would be facilitating, so that all the facets, one which is to ensure that the banks will be supported, the other is to ensure that we have enough incentives to be given for remittances to come.
It's about securitizing remittances as well.
That's a different one. I'll come to that if you like. And the third one is to ensure that those who are indulging in wrongful or illegal practices are punished. So all three aspects of this go together, and if those are implemented well, you would find that we should have a sharp increase in our remittances as well.
That sounds very positive. And let's talk about securitizing remittances, and we hear that there are 7 responses for this as well.
Yes, that's correct. What happened was we found that when we had a very clear channel of the remittances being taken in as inflows into the central bank, when we purchased 10% of the remittances from the market, from all the banks that have had remittances, which have been converted into rupees, we found that that made quite a big pool of cash every month. So if we look at that as a pool, we are able to thereafter ensure that we ask investor to securitize that and then give us an additional facility. That's happening all over the world, where you securitize future cash flows. So what we are doing is we have identified a certain source of future cash flows, which is in the form of remittances coming into the country, and using that as the base, we will be having a facility provided to the central bank. So that would be very helpful in the current situation for us to buttress our reserves, because it will come in at a very low price, because there is no risk at all almost for those who are providing that facility, and we would be making use of that to have a better reserve and to ensure that Sri Lanka is able to show a more stable position to the rest of the world. So these are new ways in which we have created instruments to ensure that Sri Lanka's external position is made stronger. And I think that's being realized by everyone today, and we are quite happy that we are going to implement that very quickly.
And we are in the final few minutes of the program, Honorable Governor. So let's talk about the inflation rate of the country, the current inflation rate.
Yeah, that's a matter for some concern to us. And over the last few months, we've seen the inflation numbers rising quite fast, which is essentially as a result of the adjustment that is taking place globally in the prices of foodstuffs, in the prices of coal, gas, as well as fuel, and that impact is being is flowing into our country as well. So naturally, that supply side shock has provided us with some challenges, and we have been dealing with the demand side shock to a great extent, because we have been gradually tightening
Scarcity
the
is
monetary
a
policy.
concern otherwise.
Yes. So that, and the amount of cash that is now in the system has been also quietly drawn down. So we are confident that the demand side can be managed, and the supply side is posing some serious concerns to us. But however, we think that it would be short-lived. The general feeling globally is that the inflation spike would essentially be of a short-lived nature, and we are hoping that that would be so. And then if that is the case, then we would probably have a more benign rate of inflation as time goes on. But certainly it's a worry, and we don't want to see it happening for too long, because if it happens for too long, you would probably find that our inflation expectations could also rise. So that's why it's important that we manage the expectations, and in order to manage the inflation expectations, we need to have the inflation coming down as quickly as possible, and we hope that we can have a good handle on it as time goes on.
Yes, and we've come towards the end of the program as well. So since we spoke about making transactions and all that, I just thought of touching on this. How about e-currencies?
There is what is known as central bank digital currency that lots of central banks are now looking at. That is a trend that has occurred in the e-currency, as it were. Not technically just e-currency, but it would be a central bank driven and central bank monitored currency that would be a suitable response to some of the currencies that are originating in various parts of the world. The feeling is that there should be a monetary authority that would support a currency, and that's why central banks now across the world believe that we need to have the convenience of digitalization, but with the security of a monetary authority. So that's the challenge: the security of the monetary authority, as well as the ability for a monetary authority to intervene if necessary. With that, to have the convenience on the other side, which is also what people are searching for. So this match is the challenge that we are facing today, and I think before too long there would be some consensus that would occur within the monetary authorities and the currency issuers to have some way in which we can handle it, and that would probably be the future of the currency.
Thank you very much, Honorable Governor, for being a part of the show and for enlightening us on many things. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And with that, we conclude our program Spotlight. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have yourself a pleasant night.
The last couple of years, where there is a general recognition that if central banks were to have